B.2, understand parameters for servlets. In this part, before we can do the data processing, first we need to understand the structure of our data. Yeah. We need to have some, visualization of our data. Yeah. Otherwise, we may not feel very comfortable. Yeah. So in this small video, this one is relatively short, I want to show you the concrete structure of typical data when when the client sends that to a servlet. Yeah. All right. So there are two forms of request parameters. Two forms, two different ways. Okay? Yeah, I mentioned that before. Yeah, at a very early time, two forms. One is the URL way. Okay. We embed our parameters inside URL part of HTTP request. Okay. HTTP request, the first component. Request line, the top line. Top line, there are three pieces. The piece in the middle, URL part, that part we can store some relatively small amount of data because there is a limitation. We cannot store too much data. Okay. All right, so then there are second type of data, form data. Form data inside the request body. Request body part, the form data. Yeah. Here, let's look at these two different types of data. All right. Request parameters come in two different forms, come into a servlet, right? So here we are we sit at the position of a servlet. Yeah. So we write a code at this servlet side. Yeah. So then we look at the data. So data parameters come into our servlet. Yeah. All right. The first form, we call it query parameters or URI parameters. Yeah. Query string. Yeah. Sometimes we also call, remember, yeah, here, let me write an explicit form. The URL, so you have some URL, right? So URL, yeah, here I just write this general URL, similar string, right? Some URL string. After that, you have a question mark. Then remaining after the question mark, that's our query string. Query string. Yeah. So later you will see the detail. Okay? I will show you detail. But the format is like that. Format like that. Yeah. Query parameters are supported with all request methods and are contained, all request methods. Yeah, so here, remember the get, post, those things. Yeah. But there is a problem. How do you specify request methods? Right? How do you specify that? Yeah. There is some way. Yeah. Remember, our request line has three pieces. Piece 1, middle piece, and piece 2. Okay? Three pieces. The first piece specifies query methods. Okay? The first piece specifies query methods. So that's why here say all request methods and are contained in the first line of data in the HTTP request line, top line, as in the following example. Now we see that concrete example. example like this. Okay? This is the first line, the top line of one HTTP request. After get, you see space character to separate. Using get method, space separator, then URL part, okay, another space character separator. Yeah. Now you see, okay, URL string before question mark. Okay? URL string before question mark, this part. After question mark, query string. After question mark, query string. Then parameter name value pair. Parameter name, this is the name. Parameter after equal sign, value. Ampersand, so we separate different parameters. Ampersand, then we start a second parameter name and second parameter value, and so on. Okay? Yeah. So that is the first way to send parameters to a servlet. Yeah. All right. The second way. Let's look at the second way. Yeah. Second way, in the body part, that kind of parameter we call the post variable. Yeah. Because when you use the post method to send data, the data has to go through the request body. So that's why people also call post variables. Yeah. Post way. Okay. Yeah. Or form variable. Yeah. Another thing is, how do we send using the post method? We put our data in a form, then we specify post method and we send. So that's why people also call form variables. Okay? Yeah. But we know we are talking about the second type, variables. Yeah. Now let's look at how many ways we can use this method to send. There are two ways in it. Yeah. Here, when I use the font, here I hope you can recognize the font, different font I use here. Application / this one. Because when you're sending this way, you need to specify which of the two options do you use to send your form data, right? Yeah. There are two different ways. Yeah. This is the default way. The first way is the default way. If you use the default way, you don't need to specify it, okay? Because it's default. So you do not say anything, default way. But the second way is not default. Multi-part / form - data, the second way. The second way, when you need to upload a file, you need to use this multi-part form data way. It's not default, so you need to, in your form tag, you need to specify you want to use this way to send your data. Okay? Yeah. All right. Then, now we want to look at the data we send. Post variable can be included only in the post requests. Yeah, the body part, right? Body part. Consider the following example. Now, we put the data in the body part. This example. Okay. First, we use the post method from the request line. Okay. Although the post method here, you can see we can put some parameters, right? We can still use the first way to send the parameters. Yeah. Then header something, then blank line. Okay. See, blank line to separate the header part and the body part. Header part and body part. Blank line separator. Now this is our form data, or post post variables. Okay, the format the same as the one in the CLI. See, yeah, name equal value pair, separator name equal value pair. Okay, inside the body, we use the same way to organize our data. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So, all right. So here, from these examples, you can see the actual data when it is sent to the servlet. It is organized in those possible forms. Okay, all right. So this kind of detail, so usually people cannot see it. Usually people can never see how the data is sent to a servlet. But if you have this visually understanding in your mind, so when you write data processing code in your servlet, you will feel better because you are dealing with something you can imagine, right? Something you can, understand. All right. So that's for our part B.2.